I just thought I'd get in on this monetizing vlogging kind of discussion. Just there's so many angles to it, and it's most of the angles are ugly. This whole thing about content and it's all. I mean, I guess in the first place we have to figure this is like the leisure stuff. This is like entertainment, even though it's something else. We have to call it like entertainment, and so it's not like a necessity of life. So it's not something people have to buy. It's something they choose to do because they see some kind of value in it. And I'm not saying there's not value in it, because I think there is. And then there's so many different, the content is so various. I mean, just talking, it can't be worth too much. But, some videos, some vlogging, takes all kinds of shapes. I mean, Morphine's kind of got the idea of making a community movie or something. And there's going to be a lot of work put into that, let's say. And that's the kind of thing that needs, should be rewarded with something to compensate for the actual work. But yeah, just turning on the camera is work. But there's work, and then there's a lot of work. So there is the differences. And I guess in a way, I've tried to play it both ways. I've tried to do things that would, just because of the fun of it, kind of, let's see if we can make a video that is more entertaining. And then in the way I would think is that it'd be, you'd have that kind of video would compensate for the expense of the other videos you do, the ones that take your time but aren't the same amount of work. And so somehow it'd be nice if you could tie everything together and say, it's either all or nothing. You got to buy the whole package or none at all. But who's going to do that either? And you're competing with, somebody can go to a movie for $10 and they can see something that costs $400 million to make. It's not going to happen on YouTube. But you're not going to pay $10 either, for one viewing. But whatever the numbers come down to, it's whatever. But yeah, the whole model of advertising is really broken, I think. I mean, I never liked advertising, period. I mean, I just felt it never should be necessary, especially on the internet. The line between producers and consumers should be like really straight. We should have so much information that we should be able to just make our choices without having somebody sell anything to us. We should be able to know enough about what producer produces what way and produces what kind of product, and we should be able to know whether they're if their markup is 5% or 500%. It's always seemed ironic to me. I'm so sidetracked in this video, but anyway, it's like the company's doing well, like on the stock market, when their profit margin gets over 50% or something. They get these huge revenues, and I'm saying, well, that's when I stop buying from that company, because they're obviously ripping me off. If 50% of my purchase price is going to pay stockholders and shareholders and all these other people, then I'm feeling I'm getting ripped off, because I'm not paying a worker anymore. I'm not paying for a factory. I'm not paying for production. I'm paying for a bunch of people just making money off the business. So that's almost a sign of a failure business to me. Because it's just ripping me off. It's saying I'm going to charge you way more than I need to charge you to cover the cost of production. And so that's another issue with this whole thing, is the cost. What is the price going into just providing the videos? And that's the whole bandwidth issue. I mean, I guess infrastructure-wise there isn't much cost except for the upfront cost, but it'll kind of run itself except for the bandwidth. That's the ongoing expense. And so in a way, I think there ought to be levels of service, So if you get the free service, you get really crappy little tiny videos, and if you pay for some service, maybe you get a better quality video. And then there's ways to display advertising. I mean, it could be this stupid little box of advertising or the text ads like Google, or you could have videos, and people could watch a certain number of videos of ads and gain mileage points by watching the videos, and those mileage points they could use to watch the vlogging videos within the whole community. What other, there's probably some other ideas. I mean, there's just so many angles you can play with it. This advertising model. But I think the key to the advertising thing too is to have it the demographics, how to have it targeted advertising. So I mean, an angle that some kind of little player in the field could use is to provide very targeted advertising. So if you know a lot about the people watching, the viewers, and you can target relevant advertising to them, you can really increase the value of a click on an advertisement. And so that would have value to an advertiser. I mean, there's no point in people watching advertisements where there's a zero probability that they're going to be a buyer. But then the downside to all this is that I think the basic demographics of the people participating kind of suck. I mean, no one's going to sell me anything, not unless they're selling me used and dirt cheap. So I mean, I'm of no value to any advertiser. So in a way, I'm not going to be of value to any website. And that's sort of what happened to television. I mean, it got lowest common denominator in a lot of ways, and then it got all specialized because everybody was targeting a market. And it was a market that had money or that was gullible. I mean, that's really the game, isn't it, in advertising? Find somebody stupid enough to fall for your lizard commercial, to fall in love with a little lizard and buy your insurance because you love lizards. Or find somebody that's just got so much money that, you could throw anything at them and they'll buy it. But they don't want poor, smart people. Nobody wants to know a poor, smart person if you're in the business of advertising or marketing. That's not an audience you want to attract. And so, essentially you could argue that every intellectual vlog has no value to an advertiser, because any advertising targeted to that audience, the audience of that blogger, is going to be of no value to any advertiser. So they're out of the game. And I guess that's why everything starts becoming just mind candy, eye candy, mind candy. That's why YouTube is crap. It's just because it's focusing on gullible kids who will waste money. It's not focusing on, elegant human beings, especially poor, elegant human beings, or frugal ones. And then the whole popularity thing. I mean, I think, of course, you have to, there's no point. I don't think there's much point in trying to find it's going to be hard enough to find some mechanism to get payment to people for doing this kind of valuable, but there's a lot of it out there, and it's kind of hard to pay for all of it. There's got to be some winners and losers, I guess. So I mean, there's got to be some sort of mechanism to apportion whatever payments went to people based on the value of the content to the ones using the bandwidth. I mean, it's sort of, there's got to be some equation in there anyway. It can't just be some once you're in the pool, you all get the same access to the pool. It's just not the same thing. There's got to be some proportionality. But then that whole popularity thing gets so complicated because in a way it feeds itself, right? I mean, we see that happen with Google and all. I mean, it's just so ironic that we've become so focused on popularity as a culture, and in so many ways it's a dead end. I mean, it's self-perpetuating. I mean, Google will list you if you're popular, and then it'll make you more popular. So I mean, what's the sense of that? It's a popularity enhancement search engine, but it's not going to glean real relevancy, and it's not going to do very much for the real value that might be out there that just isn't recognized. And that's sort of why we still have this need for advertising, is because we don't have any real mechanism to make value show itself without getting tainted by this popularity thing. And then, once you have the popularity, it's so hard to lose it. And especially in this vlogging thing, because it gets kind of personal, and we become addicted to each other's personalities. It's like you can't let go. I mean, once you get into the habit of watching somebody, it becomes exactly that, a habit. And it no longer it's not a fair equation anymore. You're not judging their content based against somebody else's real content. It's not a real content anymore because you have a favorite in the game. It's almost like a sports team scenario or something. It's not like you just went to a foreign country and there's two teams playing and you just say, well, I like blue better than yellow, so I'll root for the blue team. It's more like you're too familiar with it, so now it's all of a sudden it's my town or it's my team, and we're subject to that. We have an addictive nature, and so that's something there's got to be mechanisms, I think, that counterbalance against that. So there's got to be some sort of randomness in the system or something. I mean, yeah, popularity should have a preference. It should have it should tend to give you some kind of credibility, but there's got to be something in there that allows the popularity to get challenged in some sort of real world fight, in some sort of real contest with a real context, I guess is a better way to put it, with the up and comers or the challengers to the popularity or something. There's got to be some way to make it less conducive to that pattern and addiction and whatever the right word for it is. So I guess there isn't a whole lot else to say. I mean, I don't have any, I hate money, I hate commerce, I hate this whole ugly game of there's just so much waste in so much of it, and that's the part of it. It's like, what do we even gain by advertising? We all pay for that in the end. Advertising isn't free. So there's the great irony, is that if you have these ads on a page, it's not like the advertisers are paying, okay? The consumers are paying. So we're all paying in the end to have this infrastructure. And so, yeah, if it's going to be dependent on that, it'd be nice if we can make this payment thing more direct. Less middlemen, less hands taking a cut, and have some more direct way to pull the money out of our pocket and pay for what we view, rather than this. It's subtle. We don't see ourselves pay for it when we watch. Like when you're watching my video, you don't see yourself paying for it, but somebody's paying for it. It's just the fact of life. The bandwidth is getting paid for. So whatever. It's interesting to talk about, but apparently there aren't any other brilliant competing ways to finance anything, or else they'd start showing up somewhere, right? You'd figure by now there'd be some examples besides all this advertising and popularity crap, but that does seem to run the friggin' world. And but I don't think it has to. It's like cable. When cable TV first started, oh man, I'm way over time. It was, no ads. It was, you paid for your content. You got your content. You got what you wanted. You weren't subsidizing sports channels and subsidizing this. I mean, now they force you into packages. All the stations have commercials, except for the premium ones. So, what happened? I mean, what happened to the model that had to turn into this kind of crap? Is apparently for a few years in the beginning, the first 5 or 6 years, we actually got what we were paying for, and then all of a sudden we're no longer getting what we pay for anymore. Now you pay $100 to watch 60-year-old TV shows. I mean, it's silly.